China's population fell for a fourth consecutive year in 2025 as the birth rate plunged to another record low. Despite the introduction of policies aimed at encouraging people to have children, China has one of the lowest fertility rates in the world, at about 1 birth for every woman, well below the replacement rate of 2.1 children per woman. Chinese registered births dropped to 7.92 million in 2025 from 9.54 million in 2024. The fall comes despite years of policies from Beijing intended to boost the flagging birth rate. This year, the government allocated $10 billion for its first nationwide childcare subsidy program for children aged under 3. There are also plans to expand national health care insurance to cover all childbirth-related expenses, including IVF treatment. Decades of a one-child policy mean that the current generation of adults who are at childbearing age are socially conditioned to favor single-child households. The effects of the policy, which was lifted in 2017, mean that the pool of people of childbearing age is also shrinking as China's population rapidly ages. Over 60s account for 23% of the total population. By 2035, the number of people older than 60 is predicted to reach 400 million, roughly equal to the populations of the US and Italy combined, meaning hundreds of millions of people are likely to leave the workforce at a time when pension budgets are already stretched. Despite China's economic and military ascent, it's domestic issues like demographics that present the biggest threat to China's future. Syria's Kurds have this week seen a major reversal of fortune as they lost territory to Syria's government in Damascus. In a statement published on X, the U.S. ambassador to Turkey and Syria, Tom Barrack, said that the original role of the Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, as the primary ground force fighting ISIS has effectively come to an end, as Syria moves into a fundamentally different political and security phase. This U-turn from the U.S. comes after more than a decade in which Kurdish groups, organized under the Syrian Democratic Forces, fought ISIS, Turkey, and many of the rebel groups during the Arab Spring uprising. Washington's strategy is now centered on a unified Syria under Ahmed al-Sharaa, with all armed factions integrated into a centralized state. Kurdish, Alawi, Druze, and Israeli preferences diverge from this vision. But for now, U.S. priorities prevail. Sharaa's forces quickly captured the 2 Kurdish-majority neighborhoods in Aleppo City, the eastern Aleppo countryside, parts of Deir ez-Zor, Raqqa, and the Kurdish-majority Hasaka Governorate. Syria's Kurds have once again fallen victim to shifting great power priorities. They were indispensable in defeating ISIS and hosting U.S. bases. That chapter is now closed. Syria's Kurds have now become the Middle East's Ukrainians, which is what happens when strategic value runs out. Ukraine is nearing a humanitarian catastrophe after months of Russian airstrikes on energy systems. The head of Ukraine's largest private power producer has said Ukraine has endured weeks of temperatures between -15 and -20 degrees Celsius, with Russia striking gas transportation, storage, and production facilities. Russia says it is targeting military and energy infrastructure used by Ukraine's armed forces. Russia has intensified its attacks on Ukraine's energy system, which relies almost entirely on electricity produced by 4 nuclear power plants, and has already lost half of its generating capacity. Russia has also targeted Ukraine's substations that deliver the generated electricity to high-voltage grids and then, through smaller substations, to consumers. 10 key substations transport more than half the electricity consumed by Ukraine from nuclear power plants. With most of Ukraine's thermal power generation knocked out by Russian airstrikes, the removal of the nuclear power stations would cause Ukraine's national infrastructure to collapse. Ukraine already experienced a nuclear disaster when, in 1986, a power unit at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded, rendering tens of thousands of hectares of land uninhabitable just 50 miles from Kyiv. Maxim Timchenko, CEO of DTEK, Ukraine's largest energy company, said, "We need an energy ceasefire, a ceasefire on the energy assets." As the Ukraine war fast approaches its 4-year anniversary, Ukraine's position is looking as precarious as ever.